Hi everyone, Joe March here, also known as Psycho Sorcerer, and today we're going to learn you some knowledge about afterlife experiences. And what's on the screen right now? Well, that's an experience, but it looks like that's a during life with a ghost experience. So let's move on.
Death is not an event, it's a process. And what happens after we die is no more significant than what happened.
Why is this music so creepy? Like, come on, man. This topic is not supposed to be scary. I guess for some people it's scary, but whatever.
Before we were born. Think about it. Do you remember what it was like before you were born? No, you don't.
Some of us do. Before we were born. Some of us have past life memories and stuff like that. Also, there's history. I don't know. I guess that's not remembering necessarily.
It was a state of non-existence.
Was it?
And the same goes for after we die.
Here's the thing. I don't remember what happens to my body when I'm asleep at night. But that's not a state of non-existence. So I don't know that that's true.
We return to that state of non-existence. But here's the catch. We are not separate from the universe.
Yeah.
We are the universe, experiencing itself subjectively.
Okay.
So when we die, we simply return to the source.
Not necessarily.
We merge back into the universe, and we continue on in a new form. It's like a wave returning to the ocean. So don't fear death. Embrace it as a natural part of the cycle of life.
This is my question. A lot of people learn that we are the universe experiencing itself through an incarnation. And then they come to this conclusion. Oh, when we die, we must go back to being everything again. But why is that necessarily the case? Why do you assume that? Is anything else this simple? If I was a person, like let's look at it as a D&D game. And you say that me, the player, plays multiple characters, right? But I don't play every character in the campaign. I may play one character for one campaign and play out their story, and then later I go make another character and play them for their campaign and play out their story, right? And these characters aren't the same person, they're different people, etc. You could think of past lives as being like the same player playing multiple characters, right? So you're like, oh, I was this character before, whenever you back up out of being the character into being yourself, right? And so if you think of me, the player, as the higher self or the spirit or whatever you are, I play multiple different characters across time and space. But when that character dies or finishes its story or whatever, it doesn't go back to something beyond me. It's here. I remember the story. I experienced the story. Sometimes the impacts of what happened to the character affect my life for real. That's death, right? But I, the player, am still part of the source or the all or whatever you want to call it, experiencing itself through this person who is experiencing themselves through this character, right? Who's to say that's not how the entire thing works? Who's to say that you're not something that the source and all is experiencing itself through, and that thing is experiencing itself through something, and that thing is experiencing itself through something, and on and on and on and on and on and on and on. If I was all that is, and I'm trying to learn more about myself and understand this wider picture, it wouldn't be as simple as human life, experiencing it back to nothingness. There would be these layers in between. There would be this broader growth that happens on the spiritual level in between. And I don't think that's hard to understand when you think about it for a little bit. But I think a lot of people get caught up on the fact that we are the thing at the very back experiencing the front. It's true, but there are levels, there are layers. At least that's been my experience.
Life.
Also, how come it's AI talking to me again? When did this happen?
What do you think happens when you die?
As Bertrand Russell said, I believe that when I die, I shall rot, and nothing of my ego shall remain.
That's it.
Yes?
It's the end. Nothing. There's nothing else.
How could it be otherwise? I mean, you have a brain, an evolved brain, which works by...
As long as you assume that we are the brain, then what he's saying makes sense. If your assumption is everything that makes you a being and a thinking something comes from this meat flesh and this physical body, then what he's saying makes sense. And so you have to understand that if you're someone who doesn't believe in any kind of external consciousness, that you believe that everything's coming from here, then just like he said, how could it be otherwise? Now, I don't believe that. I believe that the brain is more like a receptor, and that we are kind of like avatars of something external and formless that is piloting these bodies around. And I think a lot of people in various religions have their own versions of that. They might have the soul or the spirit or whatever. And yes, science has not proven that to exist, so I understand that. But if you want to get technical, science hasn't proven very much about consciousness and where it's localized or how it exists. So I don't fault him for having this view because it follows with his cosmology, the way that he sees the world. And I also don't think that this view is the end-all be-all view because it doesn't match my cosmology.
Nerve impulses, and when that decays, what could possibly be left?
So you don't believe in, for example, a spirit or a soul? None of that that's all conditional entirely on a link to an actual cerebral...
Yes, if by spirit or soul you mean something that outlasts the brain, then I do not believe in it, no.
Right.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, how could I?
Well, people who've gone through weird sort of out-of-body, near-death experiences where they've been pronounced dead for a few minutes, they always talk...
Now, if I was on his side of this, the next thing I would talk about is how that could be caused by chemicals in the brain, like DMT release, and it could all just be a trip, like it could be fake. And how many people fake these afterlife experiences, these near-death experiences, because there's a lot of people out there who are hucksters and fake them. But that does not disprove what he's talking about here.
About almost all of them talk about this weird...
There's a tunnel of light at the end.
Yeah, so, I mean, it could be, couldn't it?
Yes, well, read Susan Blackmore on that.
What do you think happens when...
Oh, they didn't go into it, but that's probably where he was going. Boom, boom.
Being a retired nurse, I've seen
We're going to treat this real seriously, guys. You can tell from that chime.
Being a retired nurse, I've seen many strange things happen when someone is dying. The one I will...
Is this lady the one talking? Because it doesn't sound like that. I mean, I guess you don't know.
never forget, though, is when I was with my own grandmother and she was dying. I sat in her bedroom all night with her, together with my dad.
Now it's this lady.
My dad at the time was agnostic. My grandma was talking to us very sensibly, saying that we should go home and not worry about sitting with her all night, to which we replied,
"Look, I know this is an AI video, and I shouldn't nitpick the fact that the characters change every scene. I should be listening to what they're saying, but it's distracting to me, okay?"
"You go ahead and go to sleep, and then we'll go." Not long after, it became clear that she was getting close to passing over to the other side. But suddenly, she started talking very clearly again, but she wasn't talking to us. The way she spoke, it was like she was talking with an old friend.
Now, I do this all the time, and everybody around me is just used to me doing that. But whatever, some people have to die to experience this.
Then she mentioned this famous person from the UK. In that moment, my dad and I both figured she was just maybe starting to be delirious, just saying random things as she was getting close to the end. It wasn't long after that she did pass away. The next morning, we had the radio on, and the very first announcement on the news was that the very person that my grandma had mentioned had died during the night. Whoever was talking with my mom told her the news way before it was public knowledge. And
Did they tell her the news, or was she talking to the person because they had just died? Or is this a bullshit story? I don't know the answer to these questions.
Were just simply stunned. There was no way my grandma could have known that person had passed away. After my grandmother's death, my dad was no longer an agnostic. It still gives me chills to this day, just remember.
But what did he switch to? That didn't give him any information about what's correct.
Remembering it, and I have since been convinced that death is not the end. Your soul just moves on to somewhere else.
Here's the question. Is this story a real story, and they just used AI in order to express it? Is this story a fake story that someone came up with in order to clickbait and they used AI to express it? Or is this story AI written and it's not even a person wrote this story and it's clickbait? I don't know. So I really don't know what to say about that.
Do you believe that science has proved the existence of the afterlife? Based on like your research and expertise in this field, like over 40 years.
This convergence of evidence points very definitely to the survival of consciousness after death.
People have kind of universally reported that they die, they pass through a tunnel, and then they end up in basically another realm. It seems like from everything that I've studied with this, that people say that is more real than this world, and
Yes.
that feels like their home.
They experience meeting non-material entities and being in places that feel like coming home. And a lot of near-death experiencers, again, people who didn't know each other, use that term, that they felt like they were home, where they belonged. For them, it can be very challenging to come back to earthly existence where there isn't unconditional love.
Do you
Interesting thing about that is that kind of describes what it's like if I go into a deep meditation and reach the point where I have visual experiences, where I can go into what I would call the astral plane. I don't know that that's an external plane as some people believe it, but I'm able to speak to other things there. And when I have that experience, it does feel like I'm back home. I don't know how to explain it other than that. And I also feel like I'm not this physical me when I'm there. I'm something else. And while the experience is happening, I feel like I have this larger understanding of how all of this stuff works and what's real. And then when I come back, I lose most of that. So I'm always trying to remember bits and fragments of the experience when I come back from that and wake out of the meditation. It's like it rapidly disappears from my mind. And I think it's that whatever we really are is not this brain meat, and only some of what's happening with the real us is getting stored in this brain meat. But when we're in these vessels, we can only remember what's stored in the brain meat. But the real us remembers more. The real us is bigger. Now, I don't have proof for that, but that's the experience that I've had through these meditations. And to say that like people upon death are experiencing something that sounds very similar is interesting to me, because it would indicate that the same type of thing is going on. Exactly what I think is going on then would make sense, that as you leave this brain meat and body behind, you return to what you really are, the thing playing this role, and you experience the feeling of being back where you came from, being back with your actual family, friends, etc., what have you, in this other realm. Now, what is that other realm? That's an adventure for the future. That's an adventure for after this life has passed, but that's something that's very interesting to me.
What happens when you die? The afterlife and heaven. The mystery of the afterlife leads many to ask, what happens after death? Do we go straight to heaven, and do good people automatically go to heaven? Different religious traditions offer varying perspectives, but most agree that heaven is the ultimate reward for the righteous.
Do most agree that? Is that true? Because I don't think that that's true. I don't think that most religions in history have said that. I think that Christians of the current day believe that. But even if you look at the Bible and you take it literally, it basically explains that just being a good person is not enough to get you into heaven. That only a few people will go to heaven according to their own book. So I don't know about that. Same thing is true if you go into sort of like a Jewish view of this stuff, although there was no hell in that book. I guess the Abrahamic religions are the ones that have heaven like this. Like, do we count the Elysian fields if we're like belief in the Greek gods? Do we count, Valhalla or something? Because like there's no heaven in the Norse tradition. Not in the sense of like you're a good guy, you go there. That's not how it works. I don't know. Is it something that most people think that's how it works? Because I don't think really any of the books or religions teach that. I think that's just something we tell ourselves so we feel better at night.
Some believe that souls are judged immediately after death, while others believe in a final resurrection where all will stand before God. Concepts like purgatory, near-death experiences, and divine judgment play a significant role in how people understand the transition from this life to the next. While no one knows for certain what happens after death, the promise of eternal peace and joy in heaven gives many hope. Thank you for watching.
Hope about what? You don't even know what it is. It's like if someone told you there's this really cool restaurant, but you can't see it till you're dead. Oh well. Like if you're real good, you get to go to the restaurant after you die. Like, oh, okay. Well, why don't I put everything I do in life toward that? That doesn't make any fucking sense.
After you die and your soul leaves your body, you would think you just wake up in heaven. But biblically, that's not even true. The Bible actually talks about this deep sleep until the day of judgment. So then, my question is, what exactly happens after you die? You see, there was this time before Jesus where believers would just immediately go to paradise. But for anyone who dies after Jesus' death, there would only be this in-between state. Even Paul, in 1 Corinthians 15, refers to this, but he calls it sleep. For some of you, you will come back to life. You'll have new bodies, and they'll be glorious, like you were always meant to be. You will then become kings and queens, and it'll be you who will reign for 1,000 years with Jesus himself. But that's...
I mean, when you listen to the scripture, you take it too literally. It really sounds like we're talking about zombies and vampires and shit, or liches. Like, Jesus died and then came back in some form, right? Like a zombie would. And ever since then, the church has you eat some of his flesh and drink some of his blood so that you too can become like him, so that after you die, at some point when he returns, you will be brought out of your graves, the dead will rise, and then you'll rule over the earth for 1,000 years. That doesn't sound like some fucking vampire lich zombie shit to you? It is crazy as fuck.
This is the hospice story that helped me believe there's an afterlife. I had a patient at the end of his life with a ton of anxiety, and I had given him medication and I could not get it under control. I called our doctor, I told him what was going on, and he said, "What did the chaplain say?" I told the doctor that this patient wasn't religious, so I wasn't sure what he was going to do, and he said, "Please just call him anyway." The chaplain arrived, the patient said it was okay for them to pray, and right after, our chaplain was like, "Sir, you have some unfinished business on this earth, don't you?" And the patient was like, "I don't know what you're talking about." So our chaplain left, and I was there still trying to give him medicine for his anxiety, and he finally turned to me after a couple hours and was like, "I have to call my daughter." So he called his daughter, he apologized for everything he had done to her, she forgave him, and then without medication, he was able to pass peacefully. This is the hospice story
That's a very interesting story, and that also matches experiences with when you are in these practices and you start to work with entities or things like that. These type of things will happen in your life, again, not at death, but like right away. It's almost like you're going through the need to change and to put right things that you've wronged in the past ahead of time instead of doing it at the end, because you're going through something similar to a death when you experience these things. It's just a death of the current you and a movement into the next you. It's almost like you're taking on your next life but in the current life, and that will happen to you if you're in these practices. And I mean, I don't think I know anyone who's done these practices a long time and hasn't had an experience like that.
So my whole life, I've been an atheist. And because people conflate God and the afterlife, that meant I didn't believe there was an afterlife either. They're actually completely separate things. And so what I
like that statement, because I also had this problem. I was an atheist for a while as well. And honestly, I think it's good for people to have that period of life too, where you look at death as just the end, because it helps you to understand the importance of the now when you do that. And it also helps you to move toward what I believe now, where we're connected to everything. Because even on a physical level, when your body dies, the cells and everything will eventually be reintegrated into everything else around you, back to the universe, so to speak. So I think that you can be an atheist and still have a very spiritual view of death. very easily. In fact, maybe more easily than someone who's in a religion that pushes a certain type of afterlife upon you. And I think it's very healthy to not tie the idea of is there life after death with the question of is there a God? Because I don't like to call the source, the all, the infinite, whatever you want to call it, God, because I think when I say God, it makes me think of like the Christian God or something like that, like this personified being. I don't see it like that. We're all this thing experiencing itself. Everything around you is the thing. And that thing to me is beyond the term God. It's the all is such a better way to say it, or the eternity, as I like to call it. But I don't think of it, it's not like a creator. It's not like it's down here molding stuff the way that a God is explained. It's beyond that. And so, for me, I wouldn't say that I'm an atheist anymore, but I also don't believe in a singular God, just because I don't choose that term to describe the thing that makes up the all, that makes up the eternity. And so for me, the afterlife and God question are not tied either.
Came out of this with is I'm still an atheist, but I'm now an atheist that understands I may be wrong, that I just maybe don't know. Before, I didn't think I was wrong. And likewise with a sort of afterlife, I do not at all believe that there's an afterlife where we continue as ourselves, except we're kind of floating around. But the fact that death might not be the absolute end of all of the quantum information involved in a human life, in human consciousness,
right,
that I'm ready to acknowledge might be true. But the understanding is that we may not, the human brain may just not be smart enough, complex enough to fully understand that and understand why it works.
I mean, the human brain probably does not know that. If you were going to play, I keep using the D&D analogy. If you're going to play a character, your character only knows what you allow them to know. Your character, the more into the game you want to be, the less aware they will probably be of you. The less like it's called metagaming whenever you start doing things as the character because you know it. And what I've experienced here, the reason I like this analogy is because what I've experienced here as I've done these occult practices, magic practices, is that sometimes life feels like you're metagaming. And it seems like you have a spirit or a god or a deity or a familiar entity telling you a secret about the future. But if you look into it, it's not about the future, it's about the present. It's like you get some like awareness of something that's happening or something that might happen or something that has happened that you shouldn't have. And that's why everybody's like, whoa, shit, something about this is real. That's always like the big kicker when you're in these practices at first, that you're like, holy shit, something happened that there's no reason I should have got, right? But if it's you that told you that, it's just this bigger you, this higher self, you might want to call it. You have to recognize that you that knows this is playing a game, because otherwise you would know it. It is choosing what to share with you. It is metagaming in that moment, going, you know what? I don't want to do that. I know that my character would probably do X, but why don't I divinely tell him to do Y instead? Because I don't feel like doing X. That's what's happening in that moment from my point of view. And it maybe takes some of the like, oh man, I'm getting special attention out of it, because it's just a part of you that we don't access in the brain that's like, no, we're not doing that. And we all have stories about that too. I have a story I'm not going to get into now about a time when I got this realization that I needed to do something specific instead of something else I was going to do. And it completely changed the trajectory of my life way back in my 20s. And I didn't put it together until more recently that like that is the same stuff that I'm purposely inducing whenever I use these methods like the occult. I'm just going to call it the occult because I don't want to specify a certain method is better than another or a certain one is the correct way, because talking to all these other people who have practiced different occult practices, they all seem to have these experiences, these moments where the real you tells you to do something different than you're doing. And you might not realize it's the real you, but if you practice long enough, that's what you come to. And I think that real you is who you go back to being when this fleshy body is gone. I think you're still that you now, You just don't remember any of that. Just like if you were playing a character every Wednesday on game night, you don't remember the rest of you. The character doesn't know the rest of your life that happens Thursday through Wednesday evening. It only knows what's going on in the game world, and that is on purpose. That's part of separating out from everything else that's happening in your life to focus on this other thing, to experience something different. It has to be that way in order for it to be valuable.
Works that way.
Well, this guy has a book, In My Time of Dying, How I Came Face to Face with the Idea of an Afterlife. Well, it would have been interesting to hear why, when he was dying, he experienced something that made him think this. Did he have an afterlife experience or something, like a near-death experience? He must have.
This is the hidden truth about what happens after death. What people think about life after death is not true. Some say that when you die, nothing happens, while some cultures believe that after death, you become a ghost and disturb the living.
Wow, that ghost is baller. Go back. Yeah, we're like a ring wraith after we die. I didn't know that.
Ghost and disturb the living. However, all of this is false regarding life after death. Matthew 10:28 says, "Do not be afraid of those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul."
Whoa,
Rather,
what is happening here? Let's see if we can get a better shot of the... Yeah, look at this. This ghost and this guy are having a time of it. I heard some people talk about like succubus or incubus or whatever. Is that what's going on here? But it's himself. That's the real secret.
Rather, be afraid of the one who can destroy both soul and body in hell. Matthew 25:46 adds, "Then they will go away to eternal punishment, but the righteous to eternal life." This verse speaks about heaven, hell, and life after death, emphasizing that righteousness is the key to heaven.
What is happening?
So, type and ask God to teach you more about his righteousness if you want to go to heaven. This is the hidden truth about what happens after death.
Hold on, wait a minute, what?
What people think of... So, type and ask...
Type and ask God to teach you more about his righteousness. Does that mean that Divine Insights Met VUG is actually God putting out these AI videos? I think we've reached the bottom of the well on what we could actually talk about here. You know, I only did short videos, short form, because I felt like it would be more entertaining that way, and I think we did have some very interesting discussions around it, but once you start hitting these videos, you know you're at the bottom of the well. In fact, I'm gonna do my intro now. I don't actually do the intro before I do the viewing. Usually I do it afterward, because sometimes I try to view a subject and it ends up not working, and I try a couple of different things before I get to it. But I'm gonna do my intro now. I'm gonna put this picture next to me.
Be afraid of...
No, go back. It looks worse with his head not there. We're leaving it like that. It just says, "but cannot kill the soul." That's perfect. All right. We'll leave the little thing going around too. Let's do it. Let's intro it up. Hi everyone, Joe March here, also known as Psycho Sorcerer, and today we're going to learn you some knowledge about afterlife experiences. And whoa, what's on the screen right now? Well, that's an experience, but it looks like that's a during life with a ghost experience. So let's move on.
A sea monster is spotted off the US coast and dozens saw it. 1817, Cape Ann, Massachusetts, a creature unlike anything known to man. Fishermen, sailors, locals all reported the same thing.
Yeah.
A monster, 100 feet long.
I'm sorry. You guys are still here. My bad. That was talking about the afterlife. Basically talking about the afterlife. I think I spent more time talking than we spent watching videos, but hopefully that was entertaining. I mean, you expect to come to experiences about the afterlife video and find out some real information? I mean, that's more on you than it is on me, right? Whatever. We'll see what the topic is next week. Till next time, safe travels.
Slithering through the waves.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking.
They called it the Gloucester sea serpent. Scientists investigated.
That's not a sea serpent. That's like
was
a
jellyfish.
Was it a lost
creature of the deep, or just a whale? To this day, no one knows the truth. Oh. Was it real, or just a legend? What do you think?
This video's a tease.